And here we go, Rish. So before I put on my special glasses over there in Florida, enjoying himself is my friend Rish.
Sort of, sort of
Rish,
enjoying myself.
what do you have for us?
Well, I don't know. Everybody remember Y2K? I'm not sure if I'm supposed to be buying toilet paper and gas masks, MREs and ammunition. For me, or putting it in a FedEx box and sending it straight to Taipei. But something's going on because they're
Have you
preparing,
also
because
been
everyone over
infected?
there is preparing like in hell for something. All right.
Well, I do remember. I saw it on the news. There was this uh, business manager, whatever, quite a rich guy, and he either
Billionaire,
sold his
actually.
company. Yeah, what you heard the story as well.
Yep.
I don't know.
Billionaire.
Did he take some of his dosh, or did he sell his company or
No,
whatever?
he still has his company, but basically he realized, from what I gather, he realized, well, this fantastic island and this democracy is the reason why I have all this. If she and the PLA come, I'm going to lose all my money and my country.
Yeah.
And I guess he just said, well, screw this money. I can spend it saving on the country or trying to save the country. So, yeah, these billionaire, one in particular, but some other wealthy people, basically, they've ponied up at unlimited funding for guerrilla warfare training techs. Any civilian who wants to be trained in medicine, to be a medic, urban warfare, hand-to-hand fighting, firearm safety, basic weapon tactics and movement strategies. And they basically said, we will buy all the training.
Yeah.
We will get the people here. We will build mock-ups. We'll build training facilities. We will buy guns. We will buy ammo. We will buy food, water, medicine. We will basically fund the civilian militia,
Yeah. Well, I remember. I
and
remember
that's
basically.
scary because those.
Um, it is on one level. Wow, shit is getting real. But I
Yeah.
remember I remember what he said, which was quite profound for me. Is he said, "Well, he will put up that funding. Anyone who wants a gun will get one."
Yeah.
That's basically what he said. And look, it shows what we said before. The Taiwanese know if this is really starting, it is they win or it's the end. And this is the
Well,
kind of
you got to push all
approach.
your chips in. This is it.
It is.
It's
It is.
win
And
or lose.
you
Period.
you know who else did that had that kind of mindset?
The Sith.
No, not only, I mean in real war. You
Oh,
should remember that.
oh yeah. Well, a little battle of the bulge action going on.
Well, no, a little bit later. It's the Viet Cong actually had that
Well, I'm
kind of,
saying
of
this is
mindset.
this is a story as old as time where
Yeah.
certain people realize, look, to the last man.
Look, and I thought about this after you messaged me, and I thought about it. Look, I am in my mid 40s now. I grew up in the 80s, and I can live with the idea or the thought that this kind of time is coming back, because it is not just going. How do I say this? What is surprising to me is that literally news hasn't reached Beijing that their template of invading Taiwan is simply not going to work. And I genuinely, well, let me take that back. I don't genuinely doubt they have no idea. I know they have no fucking idea. I
Well, they
know it.
don't. They
So
don't. But remember, they got all their best technology that they've copied or has been sold to them is all Russian. When is the last time? And I don't know. I think it's going to be way back. When is the last
to
time
quote
Russia
Maverick,
ever? When is the last time Russia ever successfully invaded, contested invasion by sea? All their doctrine, all their equipment, everywhere they invade, they walk there.
that is the first thing. There is no land border with Taiwan.
And that's where
And
China's getting their stuff from. Like the people who you modeled yourself after, and I get it that the PLA, they've spent a
secondly,
lot of
yes,
money and stuff like that, but your foundation
is
is built on being able to get
exactly
a tank there.
hardware and
And
doctrine is
yeah,
essentially Soviet. So
well,
I made this comparison. If you order your PLA division attack Taiwan, they will just run forward. So the Taiwanese will, how do I say that, erase that, because that's what's going to happen. These people that will be sent in will be erased. There is no more humane word to it. That is what's going to happen. And even if you let the rest of the PLA watch what's going on, they won't click. They won't click and see we need to do this differently. Secondly, as you said, hardware and doctrine are completely useless, and the ground war in Ukraine, yeah, the ground war in Ukraine, where this strategy, where this doctrine and hardware, what this is actually made for, is not working. So now you are talking about an opposed invasion over a seaboard that is like 100 miles, 150 miles. Don't quote me on it.
well, and there's
But
the outlying islands too,
it
which are
took
basically just little forts. I mean, little bunkers with
it
missiles.
took the Allies a failed invasion and 2 years of planning to get D-Day going.
Mhm.
And in parts of the beaches, it looked for a very long time. It looked like the invading force would have to retreat. The only thing that made it happen in the end was that the Germans were completely disorganized and did not immediately mobilize their reserves. So, as Patton said, one guy was asleep and they lost the war. So, when you look at it, that's the first two things why this is not going to go how she wants it to go. So perhaps he is calculating, I will lose 5 million, 10 million people, but I will occupy that
No,
territory.
I,
But
you've seen the movie Dunkirk. Have you
I have
seen
not seen the movie, but I
you
know
know
the
watch
situation.
any okay you know the historical reference of the evacuation of the British Expeditionary
Yeah,
Force and all the French forces at Dunkirk.
yeah.
I'm picturing the PLA doing that in
No,
reverse. No, in reverse, where they just throw everything and there's a lot of people dying, and one
yeah.
side's clearly doing most of the dying. And that would be the PLA.
This is
Instead of
exactly
getting
how it's
out of
going to happen.
Dunkirk, they're going to be the idiots driving the pleasure boats to Dunkirk.
No, it is, even if first of all they don't have the lift. They
No.
don't have the lift. So again,
Well,
this is the input
and
which is
America's gonna
completely mismatching.
and Americans are no. This is how we became a country. We would start. It was unorthodox at the time, but we would start shooting generals, then go down the chain of command. What do you think our submarines are going to do? Hey, man, the most seaworthy boats go first. Then when you get to rubber dinghies, call us. We'll figure it out from there.
Well, first of all, what's going to happen in the first 20? Um, well, first of all, as you said, um, we, as in the Western world, will know with advance warning when something is going down. And I'm putting my money down on it. Again, I don't have intelligence briefing from the US or Japan, but if
You
there
don't
is
have you don't have a
no,
Discord account?
No, I don't get the Taiwan defense plans live into my inbox. But let me just put it that way. It is a military idiocy if Japan and the US does not have forces right now in the Taiwan Strait. Period.
Japan, and that's the thing. People, talk. Well, obviously, as an American, we get the news. America's got to defend.
Yeah.
The Japanese have already publicly said we're going with or without. It does
Yep.
not matter. We're going.
Well, the Japanese know they would be next in line. So
Yeah.
if that would really happen, the consequences are just unthinkable. If the PRC would be able to neutralize and incorporate Taiwan into its realm, yeah, we have seen that she is not above. Well, she doesn't give a damn about the international order or contracts he signed. And that is another thing he has in common with Hitler, who publicly said contracts and international treaties only as long as they are useful for me. After that, fuck it.
Hmm.
Verbatim. I'm going verbatim. But again, my assumption, or if I was put in charge there, I would have one of the latest Virginia class submarines in the Taiwan Strait right now with 90 missiles and torpedoes pointed at where they need to go.
Well, see, here's the thing: the Seventh Fleet there and a U.S. supercarrier doesn't go anywhere without attack submarines.
With There is minimum one or two attack submarines assigned to the
For the
task
carrier
force
group. Yeah.
for close-in defense, and basically that submarine operates on its own. They get told this is the a kind of area where we are
Yeah.
operating. They hear all the stuff going on. And since you mentioned the PLA Navy, we can hear their submarines, their nuclear submarines, while we are in San Diego and they are on the pier in Huludao or in the southern part. I don't know if it's where it is in the Pearl River Delta where they have that base. So, but essentially, they are so bloody loud, and that's another reason why Chinese ballistic missile submarines have never left territorial waters. So, there's also the rumor that one of their first, no, the wait, not the SSN 91 class, the SSN 93 class, actually, the follow up of the Han class. One of the 93s is rumored to have sunk on its basically maiden deployment. The first dive was the
One
last.
and done.
So there is confirmed confirmed data that a couple of diesel electrics of the Chinese Navy have sunk under mysterious circumstances. And let's put it that way. There, since you mentioned Russia, in the Navy, they are only starting in the submarine force. They are only starting to incorporate domestic technology and designs. So what they took for their latest designs is they took a Russian Kilo class.
Is that more recent than Akula? Akula is the old one, right?
Akula is a nuclear one. Kilo is a little bit older. They have a follow up in Russia called the Lada class or Husky class. But essentially, Kilo is a good submarine on level with, I would say, a 206 or a 209 from the Germans, which we have now 212 follow up,
Right.
which is the very latest one. So what the Chinese wanted to do with that hull, with that Kilo class hull, is they wanted to upgrade it to air independent propulsion. So let's just say there is just a few navies in the world that have air independent propulsion. The Germans have one, the Japanese have one, and the Japanese AIP is probably the best in the world. The Germans, I mean, I have to admit it. Shame on us. We are not the best. However, when one of our 212s was deployed to exercise with the U.S. Navy a couple of years ago, when the Enterprise was still in service, they sunk the Enterprise simulated a couple of times. So basically repeating what a 209 and a 206 years ago did. So
And from Sweden, didn't
no,
they
not
copy the Swedish tactics?
no.
Because I know
The
Sweden
Swedes did as
got us
well, yes.
too. Yeah.
Um,
Well, carrier
there
groups are not invincible.
no,
We've lost military games before. I mean,
we
we
like
put out our information on the internet.
how do Americans play those military games? I can give you some insights on how the submarines are dealing with it. Every submarine gets a completely new screw for what's it called, for those exercises, and it's not the silent screw. It's a not very well manufactured one. It's not what they call a speed screw, which is faster than the regular screw, but still quite silent. So, and they get signal enhancers so that you can actually detect them. So, one of the things that people need to understand in submarine warfare is that the Russians never stood any chance, although they had, I don't know, 150, 200 submarines during the Cold War. Two-thirds of them easily would have been sunk before they reached the North Sea. And that is because, number one, the Royal Navy was their only mission during the Cold War was to stop Soviet submarines, nothing else.
Right.
Secondly, we have a sonar network from essentially the US via Iceland, Greenland, Iceland, the UK. That area of the Atlantic is no-go zone for any submarine. We have similar systems in the Pacific, and what we need to distinguish, this is passive sonar, which means we are only listening. We are not sending out a ping. And while the Russians have a quite decent active sonar, their passive sonar is crap. There is no other word for it. The Russians say it themselves. They have not developed a decent passive sonar up until, let's say, what is after the Akula, not the Boré class, that's the SSBN. Anyways, the latest SSN has a halfway decent one. However, their noise signature, the later Victors, Akulas, and the contemporary ones are about as silent or as loud as one of the first Los Angeles class. So
yeah, we're not making those anymore.
no, we are not making Los Angeles class anymore. And
No,
the
that's 90s
Virginia,
tech.
the Virginia is not as silent as the Seawolf class, but the Seawolf class underway when it is going 25 plus knots as it is described is less audible, that makes less sound than a Virginia class docked at the pier. So you can imagine this, especially the Seawolves are basically shadows in the water.
They were aptly named.
You have massive problems detecting them. So another problem, going back to the Chinese diesel electrics, their AIP is a little bit shoddy, shall we say? And we know how to track them. Let me put it that way. If you have you seen pictures of night vision?
Of course.
That is essentially what that one submarine, that one AIP submarine they have looks like in water. That's what it looks like.
Okay.
And the Russians have not sold their best tech to the Chinese. So when you are going from let's use tanks as an example. I think it's more understandable for the audience. The T-72 is crap.
Mhm.
So now you go the baseline T-72 is crap. So you go one step below that. That is what they sold Saddam, and that is what they sold the Chinese. So they
Well, the
start
U.S. same
developing
thing.
stuff.
It's the Abrams we send out is our partner nation version.
Well, basically, the uranium armor has been replaced with compound
Yeah,
armor or something like that, which
the
is
Chatham.
still not
That's
bad.
actually a British invention.
Chobham is British, yes.
Yeah.
The current Chobham is, I think, Chobham 5 or Chobham 3. It is really, really good. There is one Challenger has been destroyed, and that was an accident. So any Challenger that has been hit by T-72s or whatever, they are still in service. The one Challenger 2 that was destroyed was hit by a friendly round at basically the guy didn't close his hatch, and the round detonated on the hatch, and hot splinters ricochet down into the combat compartment, and the compartment for the ammunition was open and
Oh,
detonated the ammunition.
well,
So
see, the
any
British
tank,
have been leaving their magazines open going back to World War One. They no, it's in their navy.
it's
Their
in their
navy.
nature somehow.
Yeah, I
Yeah, yeah,
mean,
yeah. We have something
you
to say
know their
about it.
naval history. They left the magazines open on purpose because they do accuracy by volume. It's their tradition going
It's
back to
also the
their naval
doctrine for the land
supremacy. Yeah.
forces, or what was the doctrine for the land forces in World War II. The
Well,
British actually
basically it
trained.
was their doctrine
Yeah,
pre GPS, and then after GPS and everything, you know, we don't
well,
the Western worlds don't miss a lot when they have time to aim. I mean, and time for
no,
us to aim is
that's
a
look.
few
That is the point.
seconds.
That is the point I was going to
Yeah.
make. In the first 24 hours of the war, the People's Liberation Army Navy will be removed from the equation. So whatever they are going to throw at Taiwan, not much of that
Missiles.
is going back. If they decide, or if they smarten up, shall we say, if they smarten up and say, well, this is a fight that we can't win, so we just flatten it.
Well,
To
that's what
quote
I would see
an
them doing
American
is,
general,
yeah,
yeah,
Philippines,
but
Guam, obviously Taiwan, Japan, start missiling every air and naval base you can and hope like hell they're full of
if
something
you do
important.
that, you open your if China would do that, they would open themselves up for massive retaliation.
Yeah, but
It's simple
do
as
you
that.
want to?
So
Well, it's the Japanese thing. Do we want to fight the British Navy and the U.S. Navy during World War II? Or hey, if we can knock out one of those,
yeah,
maybe we can survive the other one. But they didn't hit the fuel depots. They didn't hit the repair. They didn't hit. They
let's
didn't
put
hit
it
everything they
again.
needed to fix them.
This is really going back to what an American general said about Vietnam in, I think, '68, before or just after Tet. And they said to win in Vietnam, we basically have to depopularize the whole bloody country.
Yeah,
And the question is,
hit the reset button.
it's look at it, if such an aim was defensible in any way, which it is not, you then have you're then opening yourself up to massive retaliation. So the first thing the Taiwanese is going to do, they're going to start shooting missiles at every single piece of infrastructure that will cause a lot of devastation. So Three Gorges
And
down.
all
Just
of this doesn't even factor in what if India decides we want some get back? Because China's sitting on some land that India says is theirs,
yep.
and vice versa. I mean, it's a border dispute, it's a pissing match,
Again,
but
like I said,
that's
if
if
they
India's not like,
really
hey, we got a new aircraft carrier. We go try it now.
Well, like I said, if that was the case, then
Right.
you will immediately alienate the local population of so many countries that have an axe to grind with you. The
And
Japanese, the Vietnamese.
I was gonna say
So
Vietnam, Laos, Cambodia are going to be like, what the f? They can walk here.
so so that is exactly the thing where a lot of countries that have an axe to grind or potentially an axe to grind are going to put forward their own
Well, hey,
military action.
would
So
you rather the bullet be gone and you fired it at the enemy, or the bullet's gone because everybody holding a gun on your side's dead anyway?
and that is exactly how this will go for smaller nations like Laos, Cambodia, and so on.
The time is
Vietnam
now.
is relatively, I think Vietnam would be relatively confident that they can extract enough casualties from the Chinese again to send them back like they did
They've
before.
sent China packing, they've sent the US packing, they sent the French packing for real,
Yep.
for real.
Look, and this
They're
is
good. Hey, they're
exactly the
good at boxing
mentality
people up and sending them
that
home
the
in
Taiwanese
bags.
have adopted in this
Yeah.
situation. So
Well, what do you
what
have to
is
lose? Your life? Like,
exactly that's the only thing. And look at it. I said it in regards to the ongoing riots in China. So, interesting fact directly from out of China is they released economic figures, and as suspected, we hit our targets, 4% growth, blah 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 blah. First of all, four
I can
percent because the
predict
chairman says
China's
so.
numbers. It's 4% every year.
So it's essentially what is happened.
Asteroid hits Tibet. Chinese next year, 4% growth.
Yeah. No, what has really happened and what we can see in what how the economy is going is this is before everybody started packing and going back to their hometown. Number
Yeah.
one. In that report, the Office of Statistics admitted that youth unemployment of 18 to 20, no, 16 to 21 year olds is at the highest ever. I think like 20%.
But you know what I
So,
hear immediately when I think about that? And we've talked about this. Young men who
yeah.
aren't married, who don't have families, very dangerous in large groups together.
In
You tell all
and
these
that is
guys who
exactly
now,
what they said.
so these guys don't have a job, but unlike Russia,
It's
the
interesting what I
PLA
have to
can
say.
say, hey, we're gonna give you a sign-on bonus. We will pay it directly to your family.
Uh,
That check will hit before you ship out.
Before you get hit. Well, I doubt it will hit before they get hit, but that is
Well, you
exactly
know
what
what
I
I
was
mean,
going
though.
at.
Like,
So they
these
have a
China can say, we
large.
will set up your families. You need work. We need soldiers. We're not Russia. We have the money.
Look, it is essentially just because of the propaganda and zero information coming in from the outside. And it's exactly what I was going to say. You have this large disgruntled number, and the Office of
unemployed.
Statistics said there is a real danger of social unrest, which is euphemism for massive riot against the CCP. So what do you do what do you do as any government that faces like, well, people are coming to go after us? Well, we
Yeah.
send them for and have another enemy. So that is the
Revolutions are
danger.
started by young men.
Yep.
Like, look at America. If you look at the ages of the people who signed the Declaration of Independence, yeah, pretty low. I mean, lower than you would think. It's not 50 and 60-year-olds. Those were 20, 30, early 40-year-olds
Yep.
building a
When you
nation,
look
fighting the greatest empire the world had ever known to that point.
and like I said, this is the dangerous
Because they didn't have
situation of
wives,
this.
they had guns and liquor.
So and the problem I see is that a lot of these young men, as you said, they are relatively well educated. They are the only child of the family, especially if it's a male child. The family will
Yeah.
have something to say in terms of no, you're not going there. So And I started to hear rumors that the PLA ground force has increased their recruitment. So we also have to say PLA, the army as such, has this is data directly before or directly after the first COVID lockdowns in China. I know it on a good source that over the last 5 years, at that point, and that is like 2020, 2019, over the last 5 years, the PLA has lowered their recruitment criteria, not the quota, the criteria, 3 times. So they accept lower and lower standards. So
They did not listen to Papa John. Not the racist stuff Papa John said, the other stuff when people still liked him. Better
yeah.
ingredients, better pizza.
But look at it from this point of view. At that moment, you have a large disgruntled country. In essence,
Hmm.
not only young people, a lot of people in their 40s and 50s who grew up in the golden age of China opening, yeah, under Deng, under Jiang, under Hu Jintao, yeah. So they will start asking questions, and these people genuinely, a lot of them started realizing, wait a second, the narrative doesn't really work. And they start asking questions. Well, if China is so great, why do so many people want to go abroad? Why do people go study abroad? Why do you steal intellectual property from others that you despise? Yeah. So it does not
What did
make sense.
Reagan say to Gorbachev? Democracy has its flaws, but we've never had to build a wall to keep our citizens inside. And China
So
has essentially put up a financial wall.
it's not only a financial wall. It is. Well, we can talk about the finance. You a couple
Well,
of
we
times you
have. I'm
talked
going
about
back
the
to our last
yuan.
conversation with the two currencies for one
Yeah.
country, and you saw how bewildered I'm like, dude, this is dumb. Who the
Right.
would do
I
this?
want to slug off one of the finest universities in the world, Stanford. They published a paper, I think 2 years ago, how the yuan will replace the dollar. And my comment before I was blocked was, for that to happen, the yuan would need to be a free floating currency, which it will never be. So there are, well, if somebody is financially and monetary policy inclined to look the stuff up, there are certain criteria that a reserve currency or a currency that is accepted everywhere needs to fulfill. And one of them is convertibility. If I go in the middle of, I don't know, in the Amazon, and I meet a native and I give them $100, I get something for it.
Mhm.
If I give them 1,000,000 yuan, they will tell me to f off. So the yuan is not a tradable currency in the sense that the US dollar is. The other thing is the value of the yuan is decided solely and exclusively by Chairman Xi Jinping. If he says this is the value, that is the value. So there is no market forces in the sense that
That's
we
that's
know.
that's a very volatile investment market.
Any in look, it has it has happened, and this is why people that I will say something in a moment. But that sentence, if you had said that 2 years ago, you would have been sent to an institution and never let out again. But now that it has happened to a very large degree to both Chinese as well as foreign investors, people are not being labeled crazy anymore. But is essentially what can happen at any moment without notice, that a government official comes to you as a person or you as an organization and says this is now party property. End of the story. there is
Yeah.
there is no legal process, and if there is a legal process, both the party and Chairman Xi don't give a damn.
So that
Not
shows
only
the
abroad,
domestic
domestically.
impact. Yeah, that's just the domestic impact.
Ah, yeah, domestic
Abroad,
impact.
foreign, you literally have governments, mine, saying if you go there and do business, don't come back.
Yep.
When you
Look, this is literally
leave
the
your
thing.
paperwork. Your paperwork will not be valid when you come back. If you try, you will be arrested.
Going back to domestic economy, one of the highlights of that report published by the Office of Statistics was stronger than expected demand, as in goods purchases. But as I said earlier, no long-term investments, just consumption.
Yeah,
And
quick sell.
yeah,
Yeah, it's just a quick sell.
compared to the demand that was restricted for so long, essentially 3 years, it was like burning straw. It burned bright for a second, but then it was gone. And that is what has driven this 4% alleged 4% spike. What is still completely effed up is the property market, which accounts for 30% of the GDP. So
But you
when you
already
look at that,
gave us what happens with the you've already explained how that works to myself and the
the
viewers. It's
property
not a good
market
investment.
is well, essentially what is happening at this moment is that the supply side has been stabilized. The suppliers, the construction companies, are stabilized. Yeah. We have seen the first companies going into the equivalent of administration, and still nobody is buying. So it is literally. I don't know if there is an American equivalent, but there was a children's poem when I grew up in the 80s. I paint the world just as I want it. Yeah. So this
Before
is
my time, brother. Before
it's
my time.
really a thing, and the total information control and the information illiteracy of people, not only Chinese people in general. When you start asking questions, people are getting angry that you are questioning the narrative. They are not like, oh, wait a second, yeah, that does not make sense. So more and more people actually do now in China. That's and the other thing that people should not underestimate. First of all, do those young men really want to go to war? Do their families will their families let them go to war? The other thing is, I am not confident that Xi Jinping will witness the opening shots being fired. There is considerable incentive for a number of people to remove him before that happens. And a potential war, that will only end with the annihilation of China and or the world, is something that a lot of people in China don't want to go for.
See, I
And
don't know if it could in the world though. I don't know if
let me put it that way, and why I'm relatively relaxed about this. If Xi, Biden, and Putin push the button, it's over within 45 minutes.
but you need
I
Putin.
don't have to worry about it.
I don't think Xi can do it by himself. China needs Putin's nukes. China needs Russia's nukes.
I'm calculating that. I'm calculating that.
But
So
I'm just saying, if
if we
you
are talking
calculated
about
it
that,
without Russia's nukes, I don't
no,
think it's a
no,
global
I went all in.
ender.
Look, there is significant research that even a small exchange of between the smallest nuclear powers, India and Pakistan, even a small exchange in the Kashmir region will have devastating consequences for
Well,
the
there's
planet.
a difference between a culling and an extermination.
So,
The human race has had many cullings where our genetic bottleneck went scary slim.
well, let's
But
put
we
it
didn't
that
go
way. It
extinct.
is. I'm not meaning I don't mean complete extinction. It will be
Right.
a significant bottleneck. And there is a very good movie about this that It's called Threads. It was realistically depicting what a full-scale war between NATO and the Warsaw Pact would look like.
See, now that I think
So
we could screw up the planet so bad,
we
just
end
everything
up
dies.
within 3 years after the first nukes being launched, Britain goes from 65 to 9 million inhabitants, with with life expectancy being essentially that of a rural farm worker for the
I
next
was
couple of
thinking
hundred
like
years.
mid-20s.
Yep, mid-20s to 30s. That is, and like I said, back-breaking farm work. That is what the survivors would be doing.
Well, you would
under
try to
horrible
basically
health
literally
conditions.
scratch an existence out of the dirt.
Yep. So look, and I'm in the lucky position. I'm living in one of the main targets. So are you possibly, and it will
No,
be over for me within
I've looked
45
into it.
minutes.
I'm all right. I'm
So
strategically located outside of the blast radius and prevailing wind direction of both Tampa, which could be nuked for its port, and Miami, which also Tampa and Miami are both huge ports, population centers, and they're on strategic arteries that lead into the nation from South
yeah.
America.
But
So,
another reason
but
why
no, I mean, don't get me wrong, the windows would shake a little, but unless they really went crazy or they missed, they'd have to miss by about 150 miles. But
well,
I wouldn't put
let
it
me give
past them
you
missing.
let me give you an appreciation of Russian targeting systems. They're crap too.
Yeah.
So one of the things, the
Well, if
plan,
I
the
gotta
plan that
take
we have
one, I'd
seen.
rather take it on the nose. You know what I mean? Like, okay,
Well,
it's over.
well, in a scenario where a ground war is breaking out in Europe, in Germany, yeah, the first thing, the question was, well, how would the West German Bundeswehr and the East German Volksarmee react to being on the same battlefield? And essentially, for both sides said, well, it wouldn't bother these young people at all because the other country is so far detached from them, they don't really see it as a brotherly nation.
Right.
Second thing, the Soviets would have saturated Western Germany with so much nerve gas that Germany would have ceased to exist. Again, going back to what I said, chemical warfare is much, much worse than nuclear warfare in terms of
And
survivability.
well, see, and I would argue out of the three, the NBC world enders, I would say that biological, in my opinion, would have the greatest possibility of just ending everyone. Because you don't need these direct attacks and then indirect, diminishing of the sunlight
I
and
tell you what the problem with biological
the
warfare is.
food chain going on. All you need is for people
Let's
to
just
seek out
say,
other people, and that is human nature. It's
yes,
human nature to seek
look,
out other
but
people.
look, the problem with that is exactly
Everyone's a
what you
missile.
said. Anyone who would introduce biological warfare into a battlefield not only risks but knows they will be annihilated by
No,
their own
you're
weapons.
doing it to watch the world
So,
burn. You have to know that
so
going in. I'm doing this to kill everything.
well, including yourself.
Yes,
That is the thing. So, and
everything.
as long as there are other options, yeah, I don't think
But there's
that's
terrorist rogue nations. I mean, when people really start to lose, people have done just crazy
crazy stuff.
atrocities
Yes.
on
Look,
the way out.
that's not to
One
say.
of the only serious transfers of power was apartheid in South Africa, where they gave up their nukes, they demolished their nuclear program, and they said, "Here, take the power. It's obviously we're not doing it." That's the only really peaceful example in modern times I can think of, where someone
Well,
let go who had game enders. Somebody who had game ender technology gave it up and said,
I'll
F
look at
it,
it from this point of view.
y'all can have it without
At that
bloodshed.
point, South Africa had 6 nukes, a seventh being on the line for being assembled. and they realized having those limited number of nukes is nothing compared to not being part of the world. So,
Well, what were they going to
and
do? Nuke Johannesburg 3 times? I mean, to
see, this is
control
this
their
is the
own
problem, and that
population?
I mean that is the solution to
Their
our
problem was
problems
they,
with China
yeah.
and Russia. So we have essentially almost removed Russia from everything. So
Mhm.
we have them in a couple of international organizations like the UN, but people start to stop listening to them. So if we did that to China, like Peter Zehan says, if those sanctions that we placed on Russia are placed on China, China is gone within a year.
Mhm.
And even under the circumstances that the Russians would be buddy buddy with them, which they wouldn't be. I massively doubt that this strategic partnership, friendship, whatever thing will last the opening salvos of a war. So the other
Well,
thing is,
strategic partnership literally means we're going to help each other when it's beneficial to
yeah,
us.
the other thing going one level down from the top administration in China. I need to be careful, but let's just say not every CCP member is in the CCP because they are true believers.
Well, the
I
same
have
could be said
seen,
about the Catholic Church hierarchy. To some people, it's just a job with some perks.
well, that is one major reason that some people took it on themselves and went into the party. I mean, my dad
It's
was
a
in the
job with
party because
perks.
he had to. Yeah,
Yeah.
there is certain perks. However, at the same time, where these people are in the party, I can absolutely see them. They are not going to sabotage, or they are not going to sabotage their country, but they will sabotage the party's efforts, the party's war
Oh
efforts.
yeah. Well, think about
I
the
have
Han people though. Not the PLA, not the Chinese nation in its current form. Think about the history and the ancestry of the Han people, which that's what they see themselves as. They don't want to see
a
all
lot
of
of the
that literally
soldiers will
be
be thinking,
erased.
yeah, a lot of soldiers will be thinking, yeah, wait a second, if we really flatten Taiwan with missiles, we are shooting at ourselves. Why are we doing this?
And then they
So there
know
will
that
be
the mainland's
questions.
gonna
And
suffer. Like
well, there
all
is
that
no
history gone.
scenario where Xi Jinping comes out as a winner. Even with, like I said, even with peaceful reunification under Beijing's rule, they don't know what to fucking do with the stuff that they inherit, and they won't have any customers after that. So it is
No.
a lose-lose situation.
But what it's going to take Taiwan, there's not going to be any factories. Even if they don't get them, the Taiwanese will get them
Well,
just as a
first of all,
FU.
that. But again, like I said, even if that was not the case, even if Xi Jinping walked into Taiwan and took everything over, he doesn't. He at that moment he has no longer any customers. He has not improved his country's um, supply situation in terms of food, in terms
So
of
it's so
resources.
this
So
situation would be Austria without all the good stuff that Austria had. Walked
something
in
like
as a
that.
liberator,
So
but Austria actually had strategic value.
well, Austria and the parts of Czechoslovakia that Hitler took over were the parts with strategic value.
Well, that's
And
why he drew the line where he drew it. No, this part's ethnic German, all the way around. Yeah, this oil field. Yeah, these trees. Yeah.
yeah, and he was
He
a
decided
bit
Germans
pissed
live
off
there.
that he couldn't get Slovakia.
Yeah.
But then Slovakia became an
Yeah,
ally
yeah.
and gave us significant help during the opening stages of Fall Weiss, the invasion of Poland. But again, going back to what I wanted to say for a couple of minutes, so is that the mid to upper level of public administrators in China will make sure that the machine stops. So I have, well, like I said, I have to be a bit careful not to expose anyone, but the anti-Xi and the anti-Xi sentiment is very high among these people. So this I had jokingly a conversation while I was still in China. Is we were talking about this propaganda where the foreigners are mean, the foreigners are paid by the CIA, and so on. And we were talking about, I was talking with that person about how fucked up the situation is because of the Communist Party. And he said, well, Roland, do you think she is paid by the CIA?
If so, he's
So
doing a really good job.
he is doing a really good job for us. So, and like I said, I had to laugh.
Money well
To laugh.
spent. Well, hey,
So,
if Saddam Hussein would have took the CIA's money, he'd still be in power, and Iraq would probably be the third or fourth largest air fleet of F-16s right now. This day,
well,
2023.
but again, you have people that in China that are openly pro Taiwan, or
Mhm.
relatively open. Yeah. So I
Open
realize
on the sliding scale.
I realize a lot of Chinese acquaintances are very, very careful what they say and to who, especially to other Chinese. So you never know. But I increasingly see a shift towards wait a second. Yeah, and which is the first stage of questioning the narrative and openly opposing it. Once that floodgate is open, like I said, there is no win situation for Xi and the Communist Party. And I said this about economic situation after the financial crisis in 2008. We are just optimizing the height of the fall right now. And the same thing when you go back and financial crisis is actually a good ender for this conversation about China, is China's reaction to the financial crisis was printing money essentially. Economic growth in China, especially under Xi, has been credit fueled, and for every 7 yuan they spent, they generated 1 yuan of GDP, which is really. And
Not the best return.
when you absolutely control the narrative, when you absolutely 100% control the narrative and have put it onto you to remove, execute, and silence everybody who is questioning it, for a while you get a very obedient population. However, the riots that are ongoing, the disgruntled rural population that no longer has a job, will realize that what they had before these problems is the maximum China can go economically, unless they transform their whole bloody governance system, which the CCP doesn't want to do. In
Well, no,
order to
because they wouldn't be a
transition,
part of the future.
no, you have reached in China the maximum what industrialization can achieve, and they are good at it. No doubt that the Chinese industrial system is really, really good. Even when you consider the human cost, which could be dramatically improved, you have a system that is really, really well geared. And we have learned a lot that we are implementing in the next level of factories, which will be automated. Yeah.
Hey, I don't
So
recall them ever putting Liberty ships out every 42 days.
our Liberty ships, I think the fastest Liberty ship built was around 5 days. I would have to look it up again, but basically, American wharfs, ship
We
wharfs,
put
were
out
shitting out.
2,800. We put out 2,800 heavy transports, Liberty ships, for World War II.
They were shitting them out faster than we could have, even in theory, sunk them. So, but speaking of that, a transition, what they would need for restarting the economy, a service and a consumption based economy, they would have to transition to a post-industrial world. And any authoritarian system is inherently contrarian to that move. So the maximum China can achieve is essentially the current level of industrialization, which they have no customers for. So
and getting less. And just for the record, 42 days was the record that we did from laying down the ship to completion. They completed a ship
much faster. I've read it. It was much faster.
I need to go back and watch that video.
I think the Henry Kaiser. The Henry Kaiser did. I think it was 5 days.
That had to have been like in 44 or 45. We must have been doing damn fine work by then.
Yep. No, it was damn fast. But I really want to record build time.
We give the people the truth.
Average 3 ships every 2 days.
God damn.
So,
okay, well, when the Chinese can figure out how to do that, they'll have a chance at Taiwan.
Not even then. Not even then, because if they start anything like that, there will be people starting to shoot.
Now, what are they doing?
Here we go. The record was set by SS Robert E. Peary, which was launched 4 days and 15 and a half hours after the keel had been laid. On average, it was 39 days.
Okay. So I was close to. All right. So we were hugging around there.
Yep.
Just to show the people what could be done.
So, yeah, I mean, look at it. First of all, I don't see it happening. If it starts happening, she is not improving his own personal outlook or the country's outlook, even under the best circumstances. So we have set up Russia for a no-win situation, and if nobody tells she that this is a no-win situation, that's, like I said, even under the most favorable circumstances with incredible loss of face, rolling over and accepting defeat, there is no economic power in the world. No pockets are deep enough to save the Chinese economy. That is the problem that they have right now. And none of that is improved with starting a war that they can't win. And I would reckon that China can't deploy the number of people to Taiwan that they would need in such an invasion, because they would need them domestically to prop up the government in that scenario. So I think that is a good break for this one.
That's a good break, and we will have more again as it comes out.
Yeah.
Hopefully our next video is not made under wartime. Well, with them, I mean, there's always one going, but he's rolling.
Over there is Rish, and we will come back with more and hopefully better news as we have them.
That's right. Buy a bottle of water and a helmet. Toot toot. Jump on board. It's happening.